All right, so we got the catches and so on. So again, just make sure this catch exception has the last one is the catch all. So I cannot put like up here, right? I cannot grab this and put it above here. Okay. As you can see, if I put up there, all these three are now errored out because they say, "Hey, what? You can't use this because this is a catch-all." I mean, all these will never be reached, right? So there's no point of putting it here if that's the case. So it's always the last one in the catch blocks if you're gonna use any more specific ones. And the last one here is the finally block. Okay. So the finally again is used for it's like a cleanup thing. So whatever you do, this finally will always run. So instead of putting this message down here and in the bottom by itself, I'm going to just drag that over and put it inside the finally block. Okay. So just to see that, you know, it will always run. Maybe I just put down here another message too, saying done, right? So we know that the finally is run. I put here finally and something. So we know this is a finally block. So it's kind of the same as it's outside of the block, right? So if you think about it, maybe you don't even need it because no matter what you're going to run anyway, as if I'm running down here. Okay, so when I execute this code, I'm going to get a 0, division with 0 error. I'm going to expect that. And so it's going to go into the can't divide by 0. I get that message because I print that out. And then it will jump to the finally and then the done statement down here. Okay, so all those will run. So here again, if I type in 5, so here I get the can't divide by 0, and then the finally block, and then the done statement, right? In that order. So that's basically all its purpose is used for that, to clean up things, whatever up here. So I could, like when finally done here, I could close the input here if I want, right? I can call the close, and it'll be done. Okay. Again, this has to be, so the try catch try here can have a catch, or I can just take all these out and have a finally, then that's fine too. I'm not catching any error. But as long as I have either a catch or found to go along with the try, then it's allowed. It's just some rules. Okay. And this finally here, so you can see if I put it up here, right? It's not allowed. It's always the last one of all the catches. The last statement, last block of the try catch finally block. Okay. So it's always at the bottom. Okay, so again, if you use the temp here, if I try to use the total, because it's declared inside the try catch, it's possible that it may not, because inside the block scope, it doesn't exist down here, out here. So if I put a you enter temp, or if I put a total here, it's not reachable because it's only contained within this block of code. So if you want to use total outside of the try block, you have to put it in the space, in the local space out here. Okay, whatever you declare here is only local inside that block. So just the scope rule. All right. So if you want to throw an error, then you can throw it. For example, if it's a division by 1, so this one here, for example, if you divide by 1, it doesn't cause any error, right? It's legal. No problem there. I run it. You know, no problem. Everything's run. I get the index out of range here. It's a problem. But let's just say if you don't allow 1 to be divided by 0 or 1 are not allowed, then you could throw an error, right? Or again, if you bring your own code, you can say, you know, if the denominator is a 0 or a 1, then do something. So before that, let's just say that if I do a int here, denominator would be, let's just say 1, put a d in here instead. Right, so before you do that, you can say like, if d equals 1, then you throw an error. I throw an exception. So you throw exception and a passive message. 1 not allowed. Something like that. And exception here, oh yeah, I think I'll put a new exception. Okay? So I throw an exception, I throw an error, and the message is 1 is not allowed. And so therefore, when I throw the error, then lines 35 through 38 will not run, because I'm causing an error to occur explicitly, right? Even though division by 0 is not allowed, but 1 is allowed, because I have control of this error. So when I run this, and if I do anything here, you get an error. Right? I get an error over here. It says 1 is not allowed. And the error is just an exception, because I call it exception. Okay, you call it exception. So you can pass your own message to the exception, and this is caught because this is a very broad exception. It's going to catch by this one here, because I did not use this, or that. I could use it differently. I could say arithmetic exception. I could put that here. So it's a new arithmetic exception instead of the other ones. So the class type, right? If I do that, and if I run it again, type something, but it says can't divide by 0, because this message, when I call this class, this is the message I want to output. But then inside this catch block, it calls this one. The only message I see is just this one here, right? It does not print this, and this one here comes through the E object here. Okay? So if you want to read the actual message, then instead of saying this custom message, you would just put e.get message. And now that e.get message will get the message whatever is being created by this class. The default is divide by 0, right? The default is this. We saw that earlier. Divide by 0. That's the default for if you do a division by 0. Because now I'm passing a unique message to it. You're going to see that instead of divide by 0. So when I run this now, if I type in a number, you see that 1 is not allowed. Okay? So I can throw messages anywhere I want, whenever I want. Because, this is not allowed. Or you can just say, you just put a message here yourself. You just say, instead of throw, you just put output message 1 or 1's not allowed. That's fine too. Again, back to your own management, right? You write your own handles. But here you let the system do for you. Okay. So this leads us to the next part, which means if you can throw your own exceptions, that means you can create your own exceptions as well, your own rules to add to these errors. So I'm going to go out here and create another class out here, and we'll call it something that is meaningful to us. Let's just say that you enter a club or something, and if you're underage, under 21, you are not allowed, right? So you put here, you can say underage exception. Okay, you follow the convention, underage and its exceptions, you put that word there. And it's just a regular class. So just like before. To make this an exception, we have to extend the exception class. Okay, because remember, the exception is the umbrella, right? That encompasses all these types of exceptions. It could be a math or index out of bound or your own exception. This is my own custom exception. So I put here, this is custom exception. So write my own. And here you have your own message like you did before. So usually you have your the constructor, under age, exception. This one has no parameter. We learned that before. Did I do it right? What happened here? Change the constructor. Oh yeah, I forgot to put a printer. Okay, so you have one there. You have another one that might take a message. The message would be a string type, like that, or more. So back to just your regular classes, your regular constructors. I'm doing a constructor overload here, okay? And the exception class has its own way of outputting messages. Right, so if you remember back here in my class, when I call the exception over here, I call the math exception or just the exception itself, right? I pass a message to it. I call this a constructor. If I don't pass a message to it, then I just leave it blank. I just throw a message, and it takes that empty message, whatever it is, it's going to call and throw the exception down here, call this exception, and print the error message out and see what that is. So if I pass nothing to it, chances are there's going to be nothing there as well. It says there's no message. It gives the type of error, no message because I didn't provide one. So if I put an ABC, I'm going to get that message called ABC, right? Oops. Oh, that's a different one. Type in here. So I get a message says ABC. Okay? So the same idea. In my exception, I call the empty constructor. There's no message. And this has a particular message. Now, to get the actual error message type, you have to use that super. Right? You call the super constructor, the exceptions constructor, so that it will print the message type. It will say under age exception. It will print that class, basically. And then down here as well, you can also pass the message to the super, to the exceptions constructor. It will print that for you, so you don't have to do it because, again, it's inheritance. And if you want to know what's inside the exception, it's very easy. You click on it, right-click, and it says go to open. I think open the declaration. Let's see. Yeah, if you go there, it will load the exception class, and it tells you that this class exception extends the throwable. So it's a child class of the throwable. But inside here, you see there's a constructor, empty constructor. It passes to the parent constructor also. So when I call this, I call the super, I call exceptions constructor, empty constructor, then I call this one, and then it calls the other one. So it goes all the way to throwable, right? If I pass in the one that has a string, go down here, here's the string message. It calls the super again. It doesn't do anything here. It lets the parent handles it. So, okay, well, if you go here, what happens? So keep going up the chain, open declaration, and say here, and then it implements its serializable. So this is a interface. The throwable here, if you go down here, has a constructor. Okay, it should have a constructor down here somewhere. Okay. I don't know, here it is, right? So you have a throwable constructor. It calls the fill stack trace. It does use all those red lines. This one has no parameter. If there should be another one has a string parameter. Here it is. So it fills the stack, and then it gets the message and so on. So it has another one has the message and another cause. So again, back to that constructor overload, right? So up the chain that way. So when you write your own, you could write your own. You don't have to go up the parent's constructor. You can just write everything that you want, output to the console, so that you manage everything here. But here, you just pass it to the parent. And so now, I save this. What happened here? Oh, it says add a default serial version ID. It's recommended so that, just a way to make your class unique. So if you are extending a exception class, usually it wants you to add a serial number. So just click that add default. You can say generate serial ID. It doesn't matter either one. So it's going to add that line that says serial version user ID 1L. Very common. You can keep that there just to make this class happy. Okay, so now if you go back to the main program, so here, when we enter a number, for example, again, so if I say 21, or just put like 18 here, and I say if it's 18, then I'm going to throw an exception to that my class I just created. It's called new underage exception. Right? If I don't put any message, it's going to call the empty constructor. It won't tell me what the error is either. It will tell me what class it is, but it doesn't tell you what the message. So if I just do that, and since down here I don't have a catch underage exception catch phrase, this is going to be called by the catch all, which is the exception. Why? Because it's a subclass of the exception class, right? Okay. So if you run it now, and if you type a number, you see it has an error because I explicitly throw the error here. Okay, and then it calls the exception class, but there's no message because I didn't put it. So if you call the empty constructor, you can pass no message to it, or you can always say, if it's underage, I will put a default message. So you can say, instead of empty, I can call the one that has a default message. Under 21 is not allowed, right? You can put a very specific message there that always called if you use the empty constructor. If you don't, it will just be blank. Okay, so now if we go back here again, if I run it, and then you see that now it has the message. The error, what type is it? Is an underage exception, and the error is under 21 is not allowed. So that message will always be visible. It's like when I do a division by 0, it always says / divide by 0, right? The same default message. If you want to have a unique message, you can pass it here and say, sorry, you are too young, right, to drink something. And then now, if you run it, you will get that message instead of the default one. Sorry, you're too young to drink. Again, it's caught by, I'm going to pass this message to the catch exception down here. Why? Because I don't have any matching one. If you want to catch your own message, yeah, you can do that. You could go here and just type your own message. Like what? Catch here. And what type is it? It's an underage exception. Oops. Right? And then now I have my own message. So again, just system out the E here. So I get both the message and the error. So now it won't go to the exception anymore because I catch it directly here in this function. And you can make it unique. Something like, so I know that that's unique. So I don't know. Okay. And if you run it now, you'll see that it should run that message. That's three pluses here is this one here. And then followed by the message class. and then the message is passed to it is mean you are too young to drink up here. Okay, so you have your own custom classes, and you can throw it anytime you want. If you don't throw it, it's not going to catch it automatically, as far as I know. Okay, because you don't have these operations here not allowed. You only because it's custom exceptions, then you would throw it if certain condition is not met. So instead of saying if you're 18 or actually is under 21, right? Then you throw the message there. And then again, once you throw it, the execution stops at that point. It skips all the rest of the code of that block and jumps to the next and moves on. Okay, so you can throw a lot of messages anywhere you want. One thing I do want to tell you though, that let's just say if I go and copy this one. So if I go into the test here, for whatever reason, okay, let's say I'm gonna just throw that here. Okay, if you just throw a message here, you see this an error. If you mouse over, it says add throws declaration. Okay, so the throw, you can throw a message error anywhere you want. You don't have to use inside a try catch block or anywhere, just by itself. But if you want to throw the error message, it says you have to add a throw declaration. That means if you click on it, it adds another things to your function, throws the underage exception. Okay. Oh, I have an error here now. What happened here? Oh, it just means it's unreachable. Yeah, so the line is not reachable. So again, so you throw it. Well, I guess no. You do need to catch it because you throw it. Where does it go? Right? There's no place to go, so you have to catch it. And I don't think you can't just do catch like that before. Yeah, you still have to catch it. And again, if I put here just exception, yeah, it still needs to be in the catch. Right, okay. If you can throw it, but you need to catch it. And in order to catch it, it has to be inside the try block. Okay, so for example, if I again try and catch. Okay, you throw that. And then again, you see if I do that, then this function has a problem because now it says, oh, up here it has a problem. Okay, so some rules that always you could fix it. So if I put that as a throw under exception, that means it's possible that this function can cause errors. If I use that option here, that means this one doesn't work anymore. So I have to put this inside a try catch block. And Java provides that shortcut for you. If you mouse over that, again, you can follow the same rule. Add it throws here to the main function itself, or you can just surround this by a try catch block. So two options. One, if you do that, it adds that to your main method, so it's satisfied all the way down. Or you could just put that inside a try catch block by itself. Okay, so you put it inside a try catch. And then inside that block, called the function, it has its own try catch, and so on. Okay, so again, so back here, if I could choose this option, or just use a try catch. And if I don't use the try catch, like earlier, it would say I need to put that back to the declaration. This line is not reachable. If I comment that out, gotta keep going, right? Not reachable, not reachable. So that means only this one here is thrown error. Because when I throw the error, it's going to be caught. So let me see something here. I'm going to turn this back to the try catch. And so when you run it, you see it forces the error to be thrown. And it'll be, because there's no way to catch it because you did not catch it. It's just going to output to the console like you saw here. Okay. When I run the test, it throws an error. I didn't have anything to catch it, so it's going to throw to the console and it stops execution here. Okay, you're too young because what I passed up here. Okay. So when you throw it, if you don't catch it, it crashes at that point. And so it's advisable to always put inside it a try catch.